degree, that means you makes you 16 years a slave. And if you go for your master's degree, that makes you 18 years a slave. So you can listen to me a little bit, tell the truth over and over again, right? They deliberately did this. And now every single black family has a family member or a friend that has died from drugs, addicted to drugs, or incarcerated behind drugs. Got babies being born addicted to drugs, right? And if you get a felony on your record, the big F, how you gonna survive? So it's a constant revolving door. It's a trap. And again, I'm not endorsing drugs. I've never taken drugs in my life. I've never even smoked a cigarette in my life. And I haven't had an alcoholic drink in over 25 years. Okay? Not bragging, but I'm just saying I don't have an addiction issue, but I'm sympathetic. My sister passed from that. My brother, uncles. I've been to several funerals just in the past few years behind this. So I'm very sympathetic to it. But I know what's behind it. I know it's a trap. So now you want to pass a law to execute drug dealers? And who is that going to affect? It's going to affect us. We got to wrap our arms around our youth and wrap our arms around those who are addicted to drugs, especially our family members and our friends. It's very challenging when you have a family member who is addicted to drugs because they're not thinking straight. I just did a talk last week about the difference between being addicted to drugs and abusing drugs. When you're addicted to drugs, that is your life. That's your life, and you will do anything you can to get them drugs, right? So that is very pressing and very trying on family, but we got to wrap our arms around them, and we can't wait till our youth get on drugs. We got to talk to them about not getting on these drugs, especially these prescription drugs. If you're taking prescription drugs for pain or something like that, guard them. Do not let youth get a hold of it. Youth are curious. We're curious by nature. If they get a hold of that stuff, it's going to be lights out. They got this stuff called fentanyl. If you just put it on your fingertip, it can be lights out. Called fentanyl. It's people dying left and right, black and white, behind this stuff. Black, white, Latino. We have to be mindful of what we have around our children, and we have to talk to our children about prescription drug use and not get caught in the web of selling drugs, wanting fast money. Take them to a trade school. Now, everyone don't got to go to college. Encourage them to go to a trade school, and we got to create opportunities for our youth. So again, the CDC came out with a report that Americans under the age of 50, that is the leading cause of death for Americans under the age of 50 is prescription drug overdose. Look it up, reported by the New York Times just last year. That's why they have all this uprise now about drug use. And look up the 5th vital sign. There are 5 vital signs now when you go to the doctor. It's no longer 4. Blood pressure, body temperature, pulse rate, and blood pressure, pulse rate, body temperature, and your blood pressure. It's not 4 anymore, it's 5. The 5th one is pain, and that was one of the leading causes for the opioid overdose epidemic, because them doctors started prescribing a bunch of pain pills because people said they was in pain. Vicodin, Percocet, and all that stuff. Oxycodone. That stuff is lethal. Don't take it unless you need it. It's very addictive because it intercepts the sensors in your body. That's what pain pills does. It intercepts the nerves in your body so you don't feel pain. That's what it's for. This is the Hour of Power by Brother Shareef. Ain't going to hear it anywhere else. Finishing out. Have you ever heard of the term mens rea? I'm going to spell it for you one more time. You may not hear this anywhere else. Mens rea, MEN''S REA. Mens rea is a Latin term. Listen to me and listen to me good. It is a Latin term in the criminal justice system that means guilty mind. Guilty mind. Why is that important? We have a lot of family members and friends, maybe, that may be caught up in a criminal justice system. They may have trials coming up. You need to know this term. Mens rea is a Latin term in the criminal justice system, that means guilty only if the mind is guilty. Meaning, here's an example. Let's say Johnny gets up in the morning, he's a little depressed, takes a couple drinks, takes too many drinks, right? Gets in his car, intoxicated, starts driving down the street. Poor Jimmy starts walking across the street, and because Johnny is intoxicated, he runs him over and kills him. What should Johnny get as a prison term, as a sentence? He killed him, right? Vehicular homicide, right? If you got a crafty attorney that knows the importance of that term, mens rea, do you know he can get a vehicular homicide charge reduced to manslaughter? Because you know what mens rea really means? Guilty only if the mind is guilty, meaning the attorney can argue, well, yes, Johnny did kill Jimmy, but he didn't intend to do it. You hear this a lot in court, but no one explains it. He didn't intend to do that. He didn't get up in the morning with the intention of killing Jimmy. He didn't even know him. Guilty only if the mind is guilty. That's what mens rea is, and white people use that term all the time to get reduced sentences or to get off altogether. But because a lot of black people don't have the money to get an attorney that's going to argue and fight for them with a term like that, we get full terms in sentences. Mens rea, guilty only if the mind is guilty. Or he or she, they didn't intend to do that. That wasn't their intention. This is a huge tool in a criminal defense case, but they don't tell black people about it. But you can use this if you got an attorney that's fighting for you to get you off. Now, I'm not encouraging any kind of criminal activity. I'm just saying this is used in the criminal justice system because my undergrad is in criminal justice and hardly no one even knows what it is because it's a Latin term. But it's used in the criminal justice system. Mens rea, M-E-N-S-R-E-A, guilty only if the mind is guilty. So you mean to tell me black people haven't committed crimes that they didn't intend to do? They locked a sister up a couple years ago because they said she was fraudulent with the Ohio public school system, meaning she was living in a bad neighborhood. It was his sister, I forget her name. She was living in a bad neighborhood. She didn't want her son going to the public school system there, so she used her mother's address, which was in a better neighborhood, so he could go to a better school. They gave her jail time for being fraudulent with the public school system. All she was trying to do is provide a better education for her child, almost ruin her career. I think she was like in the nursing field, stripped her of her license and all kind of stuff. She didn't intend to do that. She was only trying to make a better way for her child's future, her educational future. So how come mens rea wasn't used in her case? How come no one didn't even bring it up? And they will use it when it's not even applicable. You know how? Go back to the George Zimmerman case with our brother Trayvon Martin. May he rest in peace. They said it several times, but because people don't know the language, it flew right over their head. Well, it wasn't his intention. He was just a little intimidated because this black boy was walking through the neighborhood with a hoodie on, and he had his hoodie on, and he was high on weed. It wasn't his intention. Talking about George Zimmerman. Did he get any time? Did he spend one day in jail for killing an innocent child? You want to know one of the biggest reasons why? The language that I just used, the term I just used, mens rea, guilty only if the mind is guilty. We got to get familiar with these terms. It could save a family member or a friend. It could give them a reduced case, but you got to have a lawyer that is willing to bring up the term and fight for you using that term. But it is a huge term in the criminal justice system. Mens rea, guilty only if the mind is guilty. How come we haven't been told about this? Look it up. I'm going to spell it one more time and I'll be done. MEN''SREA. Mens rea. Guilty only if the mind is guilty. If you didn't intend to do nothing, Even if you murder someone, if you didn't intend to do it, that can be used to get you a lighter sentence or get you off altogether. White people use it all the time. This is the hour of power. Dropping it. The president trying to pass a law to execute drug dealers. But America are the real drug dealers. They've been dealing drugs since the beginning of time. All right? So if my question is, Mr. President, let's say this law passes, when is America's death sentence? When do they go on the trial for bringing crack cocaine in black and poor and black and brown neighborhoods and getting us hooked on crack cocaine and then giving us stiff sentences? When's your trial date? When is your trial date for doping up China? I talked about that last week with the Opium Wars. Look that up. Look it up. The Opium Wars back in 1839 when England, France, the Dutch, Canada, and America teamed up on China with the Opium Wars, because then they were trading tea for silver, meaning England had the silver, China had the tea. At that time, England were huge tea drinkers, and they were it was a huge demand for tea in England. And China had the tea, but they had to have a commodity to trade. So England said, we'll trade you silver for tea. But after a while, that became an economic hardship for England because all their silver became depleted, meaning from trading silver with tea with China. So they said, we can't continue to do this. Number one, all our silver is gone, and economically, this isn't making sense. So they had to come up with another, not another, but a low bulk commodity item to trade with China. Guess what they came up with? Opium, which is an offspring of heroin. So they got some unscrupulous people at the docks in China and said, hey, we'll bring you this opium if you continue to give us the tea. Then they started trading tea for opium. But guess what? Meaning China was getting the opium. If you go to this book, it's called China, Its History and Culture. Historians in China will tell you that the worst social epidemic ever in China was the Opium Wars, was the influx of opium into China. Women and children prostituting, strung out on opium. Don't that sound familiar? So when is their trial date, Mr. President? Since you want to pass a law to execute drug dealers, where's your trial date? Huh? We can't get with Ronald Reagan, the one who at the time in the 80s was bringing the drugs here. His no good wife was making commercials saying say no to drugs, but at the same time they were bringing drugs into the black community. We can't put them on trial. Can't put President Nixon on trial talking about the war on drugs, but he was deliberately setting up laws to prosecute and to put black men, women, and children in the criminal justice system. Even came out with a term, what's that term that Hillary Clinton came out with? Super predators, drug dealing, gun toting gangsters. That's what she said we had to look out for, the youth who are drug dealing, gun toting gangsters who were remorseless, lifeless, didn't have any regard for life. And she called them super predators. Oh, really? They come out with that term the same time that they flood black and brown communities with drugs? Very interesting. I just want to know when America's trial date is if they come out with this law. We have to wake up, take off the mind cuffs and wake up. These people are not our friends. They want to destroy you. They want to destroy us. But we can get around this. We can beat this. No one can't make you take drugs. Okay? No one can't make you pick up a gun and shoot your brother. No one can't make you use words to destroy your sister. The gossip, the slander, right? No one can't make us do this. So they are behind the destruction of our community in many different ways. But now we are accomplices. We're willing participants in the destruction of ourselves. They're behind it. They're the mastermind. But now we are accomplices, and we don't have to be. We do not have to be accomplices in our own destruction. Wrap your arms around those who are addicted to drugs. Help them, nurture them, get them help. And speak to our youth Speak to our youth about the importance of staying away from drugs. It can destroy you. Easy, like they say, easy to get in, hard to get out. I have lost